Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is Three Buck Theater. And Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald opens up in just a week. Hard to think it's been 2 years since Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them kind of bored audiences. I'm not going to lie, the movie wasn't good. The first Fantastic Beasts was just kind of right? I know that it was an establishing tale, but it lacked a lot of the drama and a lot of the intrigue and a lot of the magic, if you will, that the first Harry Potter book had. I mean, that 276-page novel from back in the 90s contained more energy and excitement than all of Fantastic Beasts. And I know that this was J.K. Rowling's first attempt at writing a screenplay, and then this new one's her second attempt. But Warner Brothers realizes they have a billion-dollar property on their hand, so they're not going to sit there and turn J.K. down, but apparently they're also not reining her in where they need to. And that's kind of in part why I think that the Rotten Tomatoes score for this movie is at 56%. This is coming in off of 39 reviews where 22 are fresh and 17 are rotten. 56% right off the bat for a Harry Potter movie. That's not good. That is not good at all. That's not something that Warner Brothers wants. That's not something that J.K. Rowling wants. And that's not something that Harry Potter fans want. Now, before we begin, this particular series, my RT recap series, is I look at what's presented to the audience and I give my thoughts, my opinions, and my analysis. Based upon what I have seen thus far, critics, not a big fan. Fans, on the other hand, have just put out some reactions from early fan screenings. In fact, a friend of mine from LA who's a critic saw the movie and he quite enjoyed it. So the fans of the franchise seem to like it, but the general critic consensus so far is that it's just, well, it's an F. It's not very good. But let's take a look here at just what the plotline of the movie is. At the end of the first film, the powerful dark wizard Gellert Grindelwald was captured by MAC USA, the Magical Congress of the United States, with the help of Newt Scamander. But making good on his threat, Grindelwald escaped custody and has set about gathering followers, most unsuspecting, to his true agenda. To raise pureblood wizards to rule over all non-magical beings. In an effort to thwart Grindelwald's plans, Albus Dumbledore enlists his former student, Newt Scamander, who agrees to help, unaware of the dangers that lie ahead. Lines are drawn as love and loyalty are tested, even among the truest friends and family in an increasingly divided wizarding world. Now, I'm not going to sit there and say that this feels like it's a representation of the last couple of years in America. I'm not saying that at all, but it sure as hell feels like it. This movie feels, in essence, what like Thanksgiving dinner would come across as. You know what I mean? And that's coming up in a couple of weeks too. Hide your politics, friends. The point is, it's an interesting story, but it again, doesn't need to exist is how I view this particular film franchise, even though this is 2 out of 5 planned movies. And even with this 56%, it's still going to do pretty well. Now, again, what I like to do is I like to look at the top reviews posted on the front page, because this is ultimately what the audience is going to go look at when trying to determine whether or not to see this film. And I like to give just my thoughts and my opinions, and my expertise on this is being a film fan for over 30 years of my life, for working in movie theaters as a manager for many years, having seen thousands of movies, as well as trying to work in the industry and being a screenwriter. So I'm not just some random a-hole on the internet. I have a little bit of a backing in this particular field. But anyway, so it says here, according to Richard Roper, giving it a 2.5 out of 4. The movie is so busy bouncing all over the place, stuffing subplot after subplot into the mix. And that is a problem that stems from these types of films, right? The Crimes of Grindelwald, essentially, to me, what Richard Roper here is saying is that these are setting up things with massive subplots, massive threads that are going to be played out in later films. Think Avengers Infinity War, where they said, hey, listen, we're going to start wrapping up these plot lines that we've left dangling in the wind for 10 years. This movie franchise is going to do it over the span of 5 movies and 8 years. So I think that's what he's essentially referring to, but it does take away from his overall enjoyment. Michael O'Sullivan gives it a positive review, saying here, The Crimes of Grindelwald has one of the biggest third act reveals in the whole Harry Potter series. Again, these type of films are going to rely on having that narrative that's going to push the story forward. When it was announced that this was going to be a 5-part series, many people were like, how are they going to do it in 5 movies? I mean, Harry Potter told it in 8 films, 7 books, but 8 films, because it had a beginning and it had an end, and you knew where it was going, because we had already kind of established that he was going to be going to Hogwarts for 7 years. This was going to be his adventures during Hogwarts, and obviously it was going to come to an end, to culminate at the end of the 7th book, or his 7th year at the school. because Hogwarts was as big of a character in Harry Potter as Harry Potter, in my opinion. So this franchise, because it's not based on a series of books and no one knows where it's going, and again, the characters in and of themselves are interesting, but not as good as the core characters and even the ancillary characters that we saw in the Harry Potter franchise. Well, I wonder where the third act reveal is going to be. It should be, I guarantee you it's going to tie in to the Harry Potter franchise. He says here it's the biggest third act reveals, which basically means Tom Morvolo Riddle, my theory. Now, Manola Dargis, the New York Times, says with a rotten review, Rowling has surrendered to her maximalist tendencies, so cluttered up the story that you spend far too much time trying to untangle who did what to whom and why. And again, I think that ties into the Richard Roper one where he's like, there's too many subplots. I think that's what she's getting to here. Now, Ollie Richards from Time Out says, with his callbacks to the Potter universe and a lovely eye for detail, The Crimes of Grindelwald has bags of intermittent charm and a warm familiarity. But too often it feels like the beast that's been overburdened. And again, that is, we can see that thread emerging. There's so much going on that while it does have its nice callbacks to Harry Potter, even though it takes place like 80 years before Harry Potter, obviously there's an issue here. Obviously that's going to be a big problem with this, that is going to overstuff it and make it go, I don't know. I don't know. Now, AA Dowd here from AV Club with a negative review says, Newt, meanwhile, never conveys anything resembling impure impulse. He's as tame as the cuddliest beasts stuffed into a suitcase, and even less fantastic to the series than he headlines. And that was a problem with the first film, is Newt was just like, oh, you know, Eddie Redmayne was good in the role, but the character was lacking. The character wasn't even the interesting character in the movie. Harry Potter is an interesting character, right? It's like, imagine the story revolves around Neville the entire time. Like, it's just like you're following Neville's journey, but you're like, no, but Harry, he's doing some cool, no, we're in the library. Oh. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of that. And that's a big problem with Newt Scamander as a main character, which is one of the reasons why we've heard that after the first film came out, that Newt probably wouldn't be the main character throughout all 5 films, right? Makes sense, because I think she knew she was just establishing the situation with this character, but she wanted to migrate past him. Obviously, the Dumbledore versus Grindelwald situation is going to be a big one. Now, Rosie Fletcher here from Den of Geek says, with a positive review, more of a Wizarding World experience than a complete film in itself, The Crimes of Grindelwald will at least leave audiences desperate to know what's going to happen next. And as we learned, there is that big third act reveal, right? You know, there's definitely that. There's a big third act reveal. And so it's going to leave it open on a cliffhanger, which we're not going to see until 2020. And that's obviously what Warner's is going to want to do in order to get people to keep coming back for more, is, oh, we got the cliffhanger to the third film in a 5-film series. And so I'm not a huge fan of that. Anyway, Michael Jaworski here from the Daily Dot gives it a negative review. And he says, that has more to say than its predecessor, but the message gets jumbled in the process, leaving viewers wanting more, or at least a little more breathing room. So what that tells me is that the movie's probably going to be over 2.5 hours long. These tend to be that way. And it happens like that. So much is happening, zoom, 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 all the time, that you're not going to be able to really kind of pick up on everything that's going on until you see it maybe a second or third time. And these kind of films tend to do that because they're trying to stuff so much lore and so many things into it that it becomes overstuffed in an attempt to try to tell you this massive story, setting up all these things that will be then knocked out later on. It does make sense as to why, like, the Deathly Hallows was part 1 and part 2. I do feel the story being told in 2 parts probably did really help it in the long run here. Now, Mike Ryan from Uprocks gives it a rotten review, saying, as it turns out, Grindelwald's biggest crime was excessive exposition. Okay, so I kind of wonder on that one, is that going to be Johnny Depp monologuing a lot? And that's possible. That's going to be Johnny Depp monologuing, giving us too much information, telling us instead of showing us his crimes, maybe telling us instead of showing us the creation of this new group of baddies, right? The kind of pre-Death Eaters, the American Death Eaters, so to speak. What would, you know, that's kind of the American KKK, if you will, for anti-Muggle immigration, or say, that's kind of what I take from that. Anyway, that's kind of what I take. Kate Muir from the Daily Mail here says, the combination of a cute creature fest and the terrifying rise of magical fascism is a peculiar cocktail, but the sheer inventiveness of Rowling's world will be as seductive as ever for her fans, which is cool because leaving the UK and heading over to the US in the 1920s was fascinating for the Fantastic Beasts, the first one, even though what we got in terms of world building felt like it wasn't ever fully explored. You know, with the idea of Hogwarts, it's a magical school. You understand the concept of the magical school, and then you learn as you go through what secrets lie within. Here, it kind of feels like it's a much more wide open world that needs greater exposition from, like, you know, secondary storytelling. Like, you know, like there needs to be books, compendiums that help out, that, you know, that open up the world. So, you know, that's kind of how I take that from what they're trying to do here. But at least it appears from what Kate is saying that the Crimes of Grindelwald will definitely have a lot to keep you entertained from just a world building experience. Hugh Armitage from Digital Spy here gives it a positive review, saying, as a middle film in a 5-part series, it sometimes struggles under the pressure of juggling numerous storylines and maneuvering its cast into place for later films, giving it a 3 out of 5. And that's what I talked about beforehand, was a big problem. Now, whereas Richard Roper didn't like that, Hugh Armitage did. That was actually a positive comment that he made about the film, was that, yes, this is a criticism, but we can see what it's going to. We can see what it's alluding to. We can see what's coming down the pipeline. And as a result of that, that's what's going to probably end up making it something that fans are going to really appreciate, because there's going to be that mystery, going to be that intrigue. And I remember at the end of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, when he's talking to Snape, or he's talking to Dumbledore, and you find out that Snape was a double agent, and Snape was sent back into the Death Eaters to gain information. And it feels like there's going to be a magic world civil war about to happen, and shit's gonna go off. Like, it was a great cliffhanger ending that the Order of the Phoenix just completely killed the momentum from Goblet of Fire. It so much. The Order of the Phoenix was just like the lamest book in the series by far, but it's like, you know, that's what I feel is going to kind of happen here. And finally, Courtney Howard from Fresh Fiction says, with a positive review, it's a thrilling, breathtaking, fantastical extravaganza filled with wonder, spectacle, and delight that goes beyond what the first film delivered. And that's kind of a weird one to me, considering the fact that I feel like the first film didn't necessarily deliver any of that, right? Newt was kind of a bland character. Jacob Kowalski, or just Kowalski, whatever his name was, the buddy, was, I don't want to say Jacob, I could be wrong on that one, but he was good. It was, they don't say, hold on, I can see his name here. It doesn't really even matter, truly. So you've got, it was Jacob Kowalski. I was right. Jacob Kowalski. Okay. So you've got Jacob Kowalski was a fun character. Tina Goldstein and her sister were fun characters. Ron Perlman as a mobster elf in 1920s New York was a cool character. Colin Farrell was a good character. Newt wasn't the good character. Newt was just like the guy kind of leading the story, but everything else going on around Newt was the interesting stuff. And I feel like we're going to see a lot more of this here this time around with Johnny Depp, from what I've been told, giving an excellent performance. Jude Law giving an excellent performance, even though personally I would have rather seen Jared Harris, the son of Richard Harris, the original Dumbledore, playing young Dumbledore would have been fantastic. I see that Jude Law is probably more of a name to get butts in seats. I get that. But I think if you were to go look at Jared Harris as Moriarty in Sherlock Holmes' Game of Shadows, you would see that he would be a great Dumbledore to take on this particular thing, and he would do it with nuance and charisma like his father. Jude Law just comes across to me as Jude Law playing Dumbledore, not necessarily the thing that I want to see. But that being said, this is just the RT recap, my thoughts, my analysis of what to expect if you go see this movie next week, and what kind of things you can get out of it. Anyway, if you guys made it this far, let me know in the chats. Type in Potter in the chat, so I'm sorry. Type in Potter in the chat so I know. Thumbs up the video, subscribe to the channel, and check back often for more content from me. My name is, of course, Matt Jarbo. This has been 3 Buck Theater. Have yourself a great day, guys, and peace out.